welcome to a special episode of Straight from the Desk. This time we will actually do a tabletop figure together. It's been quite a time since I've actually painted a last tabletop figure myself. Usually in the videos we're trying to do more showcase painting and trying to talk about the tips and tricks that you need to achieve like a high-end result. In this video I tried to achieve like a very fast painting result. So you can see it's quite important to have a nice structured order of how you do things. So we will start to use actually quite a lot of dry brushing and continue detailing from there. And that really helps to get like a fast painting result. We're doing this whole video in cooperation with the Games Workshop store number 2 here in Berlin. And Lars was so kind to help us out for our very own Patreon meetup with a lot of figures that he donated from the store and also some brushes and paint for the speed painting there at the event. And to celebrate the 500th store opening of Games Workshop, the idea is that people will paint in Ultramarine one space marine for the Emperor to get like 500 Marines at the end of the day. I thought that's really like a cool opportunity to speed painting video here as a little thank you for him. And yeah, hope you enjoy the video, hope you have fun. Thanks for your support. Alright, welcome to our first video of this kind, and yeah, we're actually going to do like a speed painting here to get a very nice looking tabletop figure done. And I think for something like that, you really have to think like, okay, what to do first, and the order of things make quite a difference. So I decided to start with a Chaos Black primed model, and you can see here on the wet palette we have some ceramic white. Here we have some McCrack blue. Here we have some Abaddon black. Up here we have some Steel Legion drab. Here we have the shades. This is the Dark North Nightshade. This is the Aggregate Earth shade. Here on this side we have the metallic colors. Down here is the Retributor armor. This is Lead Belcher, and here we have a bright metallic tone. You can see here we're also starting not with a very fine brush in the beginning. We're starting with just a very used old brush. Where I cut off the bristles is to use it as a dry brush, and we will begin to dry brush the metallic parts. So for the dry brushing, we just load up a little bit here of the Lead Belcher color first, and we wipe off the extra amount of paint here on the paper tissue. And then we're going to start to dry brush the parts that we want to have in the metallic material. So here I want the emblem to be metallic. And you can see just by carefully rubbing the brush over the edge, we really get like a nice metallic tone already. Need a little bit more paint. Also here on the other parts, like the Volta. Later on we will paint some of the plates here also, for sure in a different color, but this here is just very nice for to get that metallic impact here of the material. Okay, we'll also use a little bit here of that super bright chrome. We're just doing a little less just here to the top, and also here a little bit, but just from the upper direction. So yeah, I like the look of that. We still have to do the gold trims here on the shoulder pads before we continue with the blue armor parts. So I switched back to a decent brush. We're working with the Winsor & Newton Series 7 size 1, and we're working with the Retributor base here, and we were working with it as it comes out of the pot, so it's like a heavy base color consistency, and we're using that here just to block in the gold color. And you can see I'm trying to hit it more with the side of the brush, and this way it's a little bit easier to paint a raised edge like that. Okay, check that really everything is covered nicely with the gold before you continue with the next step. Also make sure this is entirely dry before you continue. In the next step we will take a tiny bit of the gold and mix it with the chrome here. And I wiped off the brush carefully, and now just drawing here also to get like a little bit of a brighter gold tone up here. And you can see if you really have only very little paint in the brush, you can get like a nice highlight on the edges, and not even really staining the shoulder part. Just you're not staining the shoulder pad also too much, so it's really just at that very raised edge here. In the next step we will use some of the Agrex Earth Shade and apply it here in the very dark shadow areas. Okay, we'll let that dry. To speed things up, we'll use a blow dryer. And we're adding a second layer. Also apply it a little bit here to the shadow area. Now that we have the metallic parts in place, I think it's a good time to start with the blue armor plates. And with that we will again use our good brush, and we will start mixing a slightly darker base tone than the blue, and we'll do that with some Abaddon black. And we're again working with a heavy base tone. So this way we should be able to cover like the black nice and easy, and I'm trying to not really go all the way into the shadow areas, but leave a little bit of like a dark lining. Okay, we'll just continue here with our base tone. We might show that as a speed up. Nothing to care about. Just really don't try to hit the very dark recesses all that much. And here where we have our metallic elements, we are working a bit more careful to not paint over them. Okay, so here we are with the blue base color in place. I also did that to the other parts, like the helmet, the backpack, and the boltar. The next we'll do a careful dry brush again, using some of the pure McCrack blue. Okay, and I want to go a bit brighter. adding some ceramide white here to the blue. I think that's a nice tone. So I'm just very careful. So it just really hits here the upper edges. Okay, that looks good already. I went a little bit here over the edge, so we have to retouch some of the metallic highlights later on. But I think so far this looks good. Some of the highlights here can be used a little bit as scratches if you want to refine it. But this here already gives us a very nice definition. We will do the same to all the other parts. But for now, let's focus here on the body. So I want to have an intermediate tone between the highlight that I've just painted and the base color. Or actually between the highlight and the cracked blue. And we're working a bit more opaque this time. You can see the dot is shining through a lot more. And we can use that to push some of the highlights on the more prominent spots. So running it here to the middle, cleaning the brush, just feathering it out a bit to the sides. Also here, just and this time we're just going for the upper edges here. Also and we're also adding the brighter color here, and we're working with this time more with a glaze of that color, so the base tone is shining through, and we can just place a more careful highlight. Okay, going a bit brighter here in the middle tone. And with an intermediate tone of the two, and soft these out a little bit. And we're just adding the lights here where on the most prominent spots where I would catch some light. We don't need to do that detailed highlighting work to all the parts. You can see that here we have a few spots from the dry brushing process. We'll just use a little bit of darker paint to indicate some scratches here. And we're just highlighting like the upper edges of some of these details here a bit stronger, but really not too much. We'll just use a bit of black here together with our base tone to get that darker tone for the scratches. And I'm just adding that here on top of the light paint dots that we have here. And you can see this looks already like a little bit more desired and wanted. Okay, I will just continue like that on the other side, and we will be back for the shoulder pads. Okay, I decided to, because we have it now here on this leg, also to add a little bit of a weathering here or some scratches. Even though we don't have all that many mistakes, but just now I'm doing a few dark lines followed by a highlight. Okay, that one here turned out a little bit too bright, so I'm just adding a little bit of a dark paint here on top. For the shoulder pads, we will also first add like a little bit more of that McCrack blue first, and you place that on the upper edge. We're trying to have it like really opaque, but not really building up three-dimensional texture. Also here, also on the upper half. If you want to go for a slightly more realistic light setting for your tabletop, it's nice to have like the parts that are facing the light source. So if the figure is standing outside on the battlefield, the sun, a little bit brighter than the shadow side. So here our colors were quite close, so you can see the bridge that we need to gap is only quite small, and we should be able to do it just with what we have in the brush and a little bit of that base tone. Okay, and a bit brighter. It was actually a little bit too thin, so I'm just remixing that here a bit thicker. We need to let that dry entirely before we continue. Okay, now that it's dry, we can continue with like slightly darker paint. But in a thinner consistency to blend it out a bit. And continue building up the contrast here a little bit. And you can see here the transition is a little bit abrupt. So I'm just thinning down the base tone here with a bit of water, and we're applying that here again with glaze. Okay, nice. We'll also add some scratches. First using black. Over here we can also add one here. And we're placing that like quite strategic, so a little bit where we have mistakes in our transitions. So here. Here there's something. Okay. Also make sure that they're not all in the same direction. And again with our highlight tone, we're just adding small lights here underneath. This way the scratches will look quite a bit more three-dimensional. We don't need to do so much blending work to the chest area because that will be covered with the border later on. But just here a little bit on that trim, I want to have like a nice bright highlight to the middle. Okay, we'll continue with the other parts, and we'll be back to paint the helmet together. Okay. Okay, so here we have our helmet, and we will first start introducing the highlights, not too strong, and we will work with some pure cracked blue here. And I want the side here of the beak of the helmet to be definitely brighter to one side here, and also here on the top. Definitely also here on the vent and above the ears as well, or not the ears but the mechanical devices here. And a little bit brighter here, but more to the lower side. Okay. And adding white here together with the cracked blue. We get a brighter tone. And because the helmet is definitely something where people look at, we're not dry brushing it, but we're just adding controlled highlights here. A little bit also here with the side of the brush, and a little bit to the top. In the brush, working with that slightly darker highlight tone as a light glaze here to get a nice transition. And going a bit brighter here in the middle. Here for the back we will also use our highlight tone and just work carefully with the side of the brush. And a bit darker, and a bit darker for the sides. Okay, again a bit thinner pure cracked blue here for softening out the sides a bit. So yeah, nice and shiny and dark. For the eyes, I've added a bit of the Mephiston red here to the back, and we're first taking it a little bit darker, adding black here, get a nice dark red. And we're adding that here to the whole lens. We're now working with more of the Mephiston red. To the lower side of each of the lenses. Taking the brush and now just with a bit of the pure ceramic white. I'm adding like a small reflection dot here. That looks quite good. Okay, so let's get the other parts also attached to the model and see what we need of adjustments work regarding the shadows. Okay. Alright, this is how the figure looks now assembled, and yeah, I really like the contrast already, and the one thing that we still need to do is we still need to take care of these little details here. And let's start here with that Steel Legion drab. Tone it down a bit, adding some black to get like a darker base tone. And we can use that here for the purity seals. We're again working quite opaque, so maybe based on consistency, so this really covers with 1 or 2 layers. We'll use the same dark brown tone here to get some highlights on our leather, on these little pouches, and I'm just adding like tiny dots here to get like a little bit of a leather texture. This way I don't have to paint the whole thing, and we get a little bit of color on these elements as well. Okay, a little bit brighter using the pure Steel Legion drab. This way we can add also brighter highlights here. Kind of focusing these brighter dots more here, and really on the upper edges. We're adding quite a bit of white here to the base tone to the side, to get like a very nice and bright color here for the purity seals. Here we're just leaving our base color there in the shadow areas and using this here as a nice and bright highlight tone. And with a little bit of the intermediate tone, you can just dab here. Get like somewhat of a transition here. The purity seal, we will again take some black together with some Mephiston red as a base tone. And apply that here. Adding some pure Mephiston red to the back of the brush and some white to the tip. We can create like very nice tiny highlights. First dab here with the white, and then a little bit with the red from the back of the brush. We can just soften that out a bit, and we get those nice, very small but very prominent highlights. Okay, I think for I think now it's about 1.5 hours in, and I really like the look so far. The only thing that I would do is I would push some of the shadows a bit more, and we'll do that with like some of that dark enough nightshade. We're adding a bit of black here, if you tone it down a bit, and we're not using it as a classic wash. We would just apply it a bit more careful to some of the shadows like we did before with the gold. So just here to the lower side. Also here towards some of these elements, it's nice to push the contrast just a little bit. And up here on the leather parts we'll use some of that earth shade just to tone down again some of that brighter texture here. So yeah, hope you liked the result here of our speed painting, and I'm quite happy with the look. And just remember that the order has quite an impact on the speed that you can gain with like all these metallics done in actually no time, just using dry brushing. We achieved quite a nice result, and yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. So yeah, now that the figure is painted, I think it looks really nice. Definitely a figure needs a base, so that depends a little bit on how your terrain looks. So just go ahead, make a nice fitting base to it, and play a little bit with the colors from the base also on the foots and the lower legs of the marine itself. So I hope you enjoyed this little video. If you're interested in also showcase painting stuff, check out the other stuff in my Patreon channel. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video.